Hello and welcome back to another episode of From Prison to the Streets. I'm Eric. I did 11 years in prison and I talk about prison stuff. In this video, we're starting off a new series that I like to call Prison Legends. These are the boogeymen of prison. These are the guys that you hear horror stories about when you first come to prison. Today we're talking about a guy named Albert Wilson, and everybody basically knew him as Old Man Willie. Willie was in prison in the 1970s for an assault case and I believe a case for unlawful possession of a firearm. However, I know he also had a robbery case. But in June of 1975, he escaped from KSP, which was, what Lansing was called back in the day. Lansing is the biggest and baddest prison in the state of Kansas. It's just down the street from the federal prison, Leavenworth Penitentiary. So he escapes. He goes to California. He goes to Wichita. He goes to Florida. He goes several places, and I'm not exactly sure what order he went to these places in. But while he was in California, he killed someone, and when he was in Wichita, he killed a woman. He broke into this woman's house, and he robbed her, and he stabbed her 48 times. And he left knives sticking out of her, chest and back and stuff like that. So he stabbed her up real good. And 2 weeks later, he was arrested in Missouri and sent back to Kansas. He got charged with that. He got sentenced for it, and he ended up with several sentences run consecutive. He had a life sentence. He had a 15-year sentence. He had several sentences that were running back to back. But then California had a murder case against him as well. So he got sent back to California, and he was found guilty, and he was sentenced to death because California had the death penalty back then. And so he was in San Quentin on death row. He was a Kansas inmate that was sent over to California. Before his sentence could be carried out by the state of California, before he could be executed, the death penalty was ruled unconstitutional. They did away with it temporarily, and they sent him back to the state of Kansas to serve out his time here because he did have cases here that he needed to serve time on. These aren't the reasons why Willie was a prison legend. Willie was gay, and he had a lover in Lansing. So he came back from California, and they put him in Lansing. And he had a lover, and another prisoner started messing around with his lover, and Willie kind of lost it. Now, I think a lot of my viewers are close to the same age as me. Some of you are probably a little bit older or a little bit younger. But those of you who are around my age and older will remember back in school we had those big paper cutters. They had that big blade on a lever that came down. Well, they had one of those in Lansing, and I'm not sure if it was in the library or in a hobby craft area or what, but they had one. And Willie took that blade off of the paper cutter. Those are great big long blades with a nice curve to them. He concealed it in his denim jacket, and he took it to the chow hall with him in Lansing. And while this other prisoner who had messed around with Willie's lover was sitting down and eating, Willie came up behind him and took his head off. Clean off. That is why Willie is a prison legend. And he's still alive. He's still doing time. And he'll never get out. He's one of those guys that's crazy. And you would never know that he had done so much stuff that's just off the charts by looking at him. He's kind of an unassuming looking old man, and he's not a rude man. He's not disrespectful. He seems pretty laid back for the most part, if not a little bit crazy, a little bit out there. I knew Willie while I was in El Dorado. He was a store man, and he was in the dog program. He was pretty laid back when I knew him. I think his stabbing days are pretty much done. But at the same time, he's not one of those people that you ever want to try out. He's one of those dudes that you kind of steer clear of. There were a lot of people who respected Willie, but I think a lot of that was more fear than respect. Because Willie did have a rape case. That woman that he robbed in Wichita, he also raped. That's what the case paperwork says anyway. In a prison environment, you never want to have a sex case. And he had a sex case. But no one was going to mess with him because of how violent he was. Willie was polite. He was nice to me, but he was one of those people that I was never going to associate closely with on a regular basis. But yeah, this was just a short video, just kind of testing out the water, see if you guys like the idea for this new series. Let me know what you think. I have more stories like this if you care to hear about them. I hope you all are doing fantastic. If you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate it if you guys would drop me a like. And if you want to see more content like this, why not subscribe? I'm Eric. This has been another episode of From Prison to the Streets. I will see you all later.
Break these chains. They can